Big reveal, guys. I am pretty sure we found it. What is going on, guys? Today we are checking out some of the world's oldest living trees, the bristlecone pine. And specifically where we're at, I think there's a specific name for the park, but I'll just call it the Bristlecone State Park for lack of a better term. There is the confirmed oldest living tree, single living tree in the world that is over 4,000 years old, which is insane to think about, considering that it's older than the Roman Empire and then also was around when the pyramids were being built, which is just nuts. But the specific oldest tree is called Methuselah. It's not marked, so we're gonna try to find it and take some video of it to show. We're up at about 10,000 elevation right now. It's a pretty harsh climate, and these bristlecone pine trees are pretty much the only thing, except a couple other trees, that can survive the climate. But the fact that they're at this high elevation, they're protected from fires and then don't really have to compete with other trees, which allows them to exist and thrive up here. Old and new bristlecone pines look completely different. These are both relatively new ones right here, where they look kind of more just like standard pine trees, if you will. But over there, and there's a couple others like down there. Oh, here's a perfect example right here. So this one right here looks almost like a completely different species and type of tree, due to the fact that most of the bark is gone and it looks incredibly gnarled, with some new kind of growth that like sprouts out to the side. I heard that for every 12 inches of roots that are exposed, that's roughly 1,000 years of age. So this guy right here is at least a couple thousand years old. From Bishop, it takes approximately like an hour and 15 minutes or so to get here. The road is very narrow and winding and climbs elevation very fast. So if you are prone to car sickness, it is a little bit tough, so be prepared for that. But the drive itself is very scenic, as you get a great view of the valley floor, as well the Sierra Nevada as well too. It's crazy because the really old ones honestly look like they're borderline dead. There's no bark, it's completely stripped. The tall portions of the tree are pretty much bare, and then there's always just like a little bit of new growth that comes off the side. We're getting some older ones right here. The areas of this grove which are more prone to rain have a lot more newer bristlecone pines, as there's more kind of nutrients for many of them to survive and sprout and survive. But then in the areas that get a little bit less rain, that are more harsh, these trees have to fight for nutrients and water, which is why there are fewer of them in this area that are much older and larger. You can see in the distance, like that area right there probably gets a lot more water than in this area here. This is a perfect example right here too. Look at this guy. And the grove itself is really interesting because you're driving up and you have all of these different types of trees, like juniper trees and other types of pine. And then there's like a mark in the soil where it's just like a line, and then it's all bristlecone pines for the most part. And from what I've heard, it's something to do with change in the soil that is more hospitable for these guys to grow. And then also elevation is very important as well. But it's just very interesting how it's like no bristlecone pines, and then there's a line, and then it's just a giant grove. Here's another really good example of an older one. Look at the root system down here. That's all gnarled and exposed. And you can see they cut portions of the tree, or the roots, I guess, in order to make room for the trail. But it's still living. It looks dead, but it's still living. This guy is surely thousands of years old. We planned a little bit before we got here to look for a specific marker to try to find Methuselah. So next I'm going to try to take some video of that. I'm not going to disclose the specific area where it is, but there is information online where you can kind of do some research and figure it out. it's not too complicated or difficult to figure it out. There is information out there for sure, but the elevation is a little bit tough because you are ranging from 10 to 11,000 feet on this trail. So be prepared for that if you just do decide to do this hike. And you start out with a downhill, which is tough because you have to do a lot of uphill climbing on the way back, which is a lot more tough. And you do most of the elevation change here when you drive up, so you don't really get acclimated to it as well too. So be prepared for that if you do want to do this hike. So here is a bristlecone pine that grew into this rock actually, and sadly did not make it. However, he has a new neighbor next to him, freshly sprouted guy. So this guy is quite tiny, but is probably older than I am, which is pretty funny to think about. We have entered the grove, which contains the oldest bunch of trees known as the Methuselah Grove, which is actually named after the specific oldest tree. Now we're kind of hunting for the specific one. There's a specific landmark that we're looking for to identify it. And from what we've heard, it pretty much looks the same as the rest of them. So it's a little bit difficult to identify just based off of looks, because so many of them look very old, such as this. But compared to the beginning of the trail, which is more shaded and more moist, this area is extremely dry and more of a harsh climate. Very rocky, inhospitable. From a science standpoint, biology standpoint, it's easier for trees to live longer here because there's less competition, less new smaller trees, growing trees to take up the resources. So it's just these senior citizens here for the most part. Here's a crazy looking one. This one has to be dead, right? I'm gonna be shocked if I see any green leaves on this dude. Nope, no green leaves. I think this one is probably dead. I mean, look at that giant area that they chopped off right there for the trail. Jeez. But then that's like a perfect example of one right there that looks like it should be dead, but it still has new growth coming off of it. The resilience of these trees is actually crazy. I don't know how many tree fans are in my subscribers, but I think that's one of the most unique things about California is the amount of diversity in the tree game, such as these super tall redwoods, coastal redwoods, the giant sequoias, as well the ancient bristlecone pines. I don't think there are many states that have quite the diversity that California offers when it comes to trees. So we think we missed the tree on our first pass, so we're going back to check again and try to locate it. I'm hoping we can. So there is a point, I mean there's a point to the video regardless, but it would be cool to get it for video to show you guys. So let's see. Look at this one. Grew super strange. Look at that. All right, big reveal, guys. I am pretty sure we found it. This is it right here. Methuselah. You can see some of the trees have a couple holes drilled out for core samples, but this tree specifically here has about 10 to 15 holes that have been drilled out from the center of it right here. And according to old pictures that we found online with the people who originally found the tree, this is pretty much this looks exactly the same as those pictures. And they've specifically stated as well too that it doesn't look like anything kind of special compared to the other ones that have huge trunks and whatnot. This one is definitely more kind of normal looking, I guess you could say. But this is, I can say with 95% certainty that this is the oldest tree in the park. That is minimum 4,600 years old. Can you imagine that? 4,600 years old. It's hard to grasp how long that is actually, that this thing has just been chilling here the entire time. All right, but that concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and keep an eye out for more videos. Thanks for watching.